Good evening, good morrow, and good morning, everyone. I hope you are well. I hope you are high on life as it goes. We're high on something here on the Smoke Lounge. And with me today, I've got the one and the only Brother Chrysler. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I was not expecting this knock on my cloth door, but boy, I was surprised when you showed up.
And man, after playing a little bit of D&D tonight, this is gonna be the perfect way to start smooth the night out.
Wind it down like a fine scotch. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for you who are unaware, this series is called Entering the Esoteric, whereby we focus on entered apprentices, those initial and foundational members of our craft within Freemasonry, and what really called them to the halls of the esoteric.
Jasper, why do you always have to lick your balls when we record? Manners, child.
Because that is adding a little bit more spicy.
He's like, I
Maybe
need it. I need it. You enjoy the show. He's looking at me like, don't you give me shit. You know
he's
what you
gonna look
signed
up
for.
at you and goes, "Why is it so spicy?"
Why is this so spicy?
Or good soup, one of the two.
Oh my god. Oh my. You definitely belong here, brother. I could not be happier to be in such pleasant company. This is fantastic. Yes. So wherever I left off before the distraction of my dog's testicles kicked in, this is our series where we focus on discussions with the entered apprentice, with those foundational members of our craft, and what in the hell brought them here, and what it's like on this foundational step within Freemasonry. So to start, let's crack this open like a good cold one, brother. What in the fuck brought you to Freemasonry?
Well, it actually started about when I was about 15. When I was in 8th grade down here in Arkansas. My teacher, my Tech A class, after that my 8th grade year, he asked me if I wanted to work with him. He had a cabinet shop that he did after school and worked during the summer. Well, I ended up, going work for him, and I've worked with him the whole summer. And it ended up being one of the nights that I ended up asking him because he's like, "Hey, we have to cut it early tonight. I have to go to lodge. I have degree work I have to do, or something similar to that." Because I remember him being dressed, blazer,
Looking good.
tie, exactly. And so of course, being 15 and being me, I'm that weird kid always had a different outlook. I asked him, like, "Why are you dressed? What is lodge?" Well, he ended up telling me he was Freemason, and he actually ended up telling me a little bit more about it. And I'm like, okay. And after seeing how he was and being the upstanding, great guy that he is, at age 15, I decided right then, okay, that's something I'm gonna pursue one day.
That's crazy. At 15, I'll be honest. 15, I was learning French to flirt with girls. I had no ideals to that. What really, like, what about it was just how he carried himself? What really, like, drove you there?
Well, one of the things that with him, he was very upstanding. He told me the truth. He expected me to do X, Y, Z while I worked with him. So he, and he was willing to teach me what I needed to do, and was very patient. Again, I was 15 years old. Working with a 15-year-old is not necessarily the easiest thing. Not only near a table saw, a router, or a sander, buffer, stuff like that, nail gun, stuff like that. It's not that easy. So how he held himself, carried, talked. And I remember specifically, I got injured one time working with him. This was a couple years after I initially started working with him, and he paid my hospital bill because I was working with him doing some work, and roofing tin sliced open my thumb, clear down to the tip. I don't know how well you can see it.
I can see it there for a second. You can see it. God.
Yep. And that went down to the bone and cut right over it. Well, he ended up, saying that he will pay, the hospital bill and everything else. So that shocked me. Just how he carried himself when I met him, and afterwards, and how he repaid me for doing work with him and stuck out. And I'm talking about doing 14, 16-hour days, doing renovation somewhere, and he ended up not only paying my check but treated me well with a bonus and doing something else. So he showed me how a leader is supposed to be. And then of course, when I got into high school, I was in ROTC, so that also built off top of that. But going back to him, it's just he was one of those people that is pretty well known in the community just because he's been teaching for so long. He actually retired this year from teaching.
Wow. Now,
And
mind me asking into this, because actually there's a bit of a question in regards to just again getting into you in a little bit more of the personal. What's your relationship like with your dad or with your father figure?
Actually, I am currently staying with him, and I'm helping him out, and he's helping me tremendously because I can start try and work on paying stuff down. So during my teenage years, it was one of those. I'm a strong-willed person. I'm hard-headed. I'm firm in my when I make up my mind, I make up my mind. And that doesn't say that I'm not willing to sit there and learn, but when it's certain things that it's showing me over and over again, no, I don't agree with that. No, you're not. And it's not something popping up with me factually. I'm certain. So that, caused a little rift. But other than that, I mean, me and him, like typical father son, we argue, we make up, we're perfectly fine, we communicate.
What was that 15 like? What was that? I mean, that hard adolescence like?
Well, I've worked again since I was 15, so I'm 31 now. So for 16 years, I've been working, and it's just I've always been on the go. I have a really strong work ethic because of my father, because he has always installed in me. Okay, you're gonna leave 15 minutes before you have to, so in case there's anything there. So he has sit there and installed a work ethic in me. He's helped with that, and not only that, but he's also installed certain things I do like, of just certain aspects of being me.
What are his thoughts on the fraternity?
He actually had no idea what Freemasonry was.
Really?
So, and so, I told him that, hey, one. Actually, he knows two, and one of them actually signed my petition lodge. So he actually was the member recommendation of that lodge as well. And and I told him what I knew of the fraternity and everything else. He goes, oh, okay. And also told him one of the major appendant bodies in it without realizing it, which is Shriners. Everyone loves Shriners.
Even if you don't, I mean, like, that sounds like the little guys on the go-kart. Boom, like,
or the guys that put the circus on in the towns. Oh yeah. Or the ones that has 22 hospitals that take care of kids, and that's just like, yeah, I love those guys. But in the same breath, people turn around and demonize Blue Lodge. That's a whole different thing though. But
yeah, I mean, I'm a definitive Blue Lodge defender over the really any of the appendant bodies. That's just me being a stickler for I don't want to have to pay $500 a year in dues by the time I've joined all of these different. Yeah, I like Blue Lodge, and they're all built on Blue Lodge. And my mind says that, hey, I should just be able to stay here and learn it all. Now, whether or not that's valid or not.
True. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I'm planning on joining some of the appendant bodies. I'm thinking about Grotto, and Arkansas actually had a fallout with the Shriners.
Really?
Yeah. About 2011, they ended up separating. So, and I don't know everything that was involved with that. I was in my Greek fraternity in college, and they ended up separating. Now they had they come back together. It's getting into the 4-year agreement where Arkansas and the Shrine is Arkansas Grand Lodge and the Shrine is now mending, and they are accepting of each other, to my knowledge. Now, of course, I don't know everything, so I can't speak to everything about it. You're muted, brother.
Sorry, I was just stupid. I clicked away tabs and my button didn't work anymore. I just did the Google and I couldn't find anything on the immediate. But either way, I'm curious about that. I'm really like, ooh.
Now, if you wanted to find out more about what that was all about, probably talk to Freemasonry Explained on TikTok, or Steve Sickerman, Brother Sickerman, out of Oklahoma. He's a Shriner. And nationally, there was a rift between the Shrine in Arkansas and.
Could you send me that? Could you message me that information just at your leisure? Because I'm blonde and we'll forget it as soon as we move on to the next
blonde's
topic.
The same mine, not hair color.
Well, unfortunately, that means I'm exponentially fucked because I have both.
Cerebral flatulence,
Hey, cheers. Nice little plug there. Yeah, actually, speaking of, let's jump into that. So let's talk about some of the beautiful things that you have behind you. I'm always just kind of like fascinated staring at. You clearly have experience in the realms of fantasy, lore building, and magic, my beautiful man. So do you feel like this has impacted your relationship coming into Freemasonry at all?
Honestly, I think it's probably helped keep my mind open, because with fantasy, I was an avid reader when I was a kid. I'm actually I would declare myself as a bibliophile, a person who loves to read. Nursing school has killed that drive a little bit, but with being in fantasy, opening up your mind to a different realm, different races, creatures, and going with D&D, playing different characters, getting in that mindset makes you think differently. Because not only you have to get in your mindset of a wizard, a barbarian, a rogue, a hexblade warlock, anything like that, you have to get in that mindset. Well, Freemasonry is not just a singular mindset. It is an accepting, overall, very broad spectrum of viewpoints.
Hey, fucking men to that.
No one in Freemasonry is going to agree 100% on everything. You have brothers that are, flat earthers. You have brothers that are globalists. You have brothers that are Christian, Muslim, Judaism, Hindu. I mean, you name a religion just about, except for atheism, is probably in Freemasonry in the U.S. Now, granted, yes, there are some, small sects overseas that have some atheists in them. But in the U.S., there's mainly every religion except for atheism. And whether you believe it or not, for certain religions, that's, personal belief.
I really feel like atheism, like you said, like blonde, is a state of mind, right? I feel like every conversation I have ever had, I've never met a true atheist. I'm not saying that they're not that, but like every atheist I've ever met, they always like a few conversations, and I'm like, you're not really an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're choosing a term which is diametrically opposed to anything religious or spiritual, and that's okay. Like that's like no contention with that. But 9 times out of 10, you talk to these people, you ask them what they feel about science or math. They're like, yeah, that's my religion, basically. They're like, I believe what I can experience or what I can, I can translate, or they fall into the simulation phase at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's remarkable seeing how you can talk to a brother of that is a CEO of a company, and they talk to you like a normal person. And most people want to go, let's go with one of the most well-known Freemasons in history, George Washington.
Yep.
His gardener was his worshipful master of his lodge. You're muted again, brother.
Well, good. I didn't hear that part, but we'll leave that as a bleep. I thought was that George Washington?
Mm-hmm.
Shit. I thought
I mean, and there's probably plethora of other different, things that like that always happen. But people don't realize when we say we meet on the level, we really do. It doesn't matter what your job title is, what your creed, nationality is. We're all the same. We both bleed red. We both breathe oxygen and exhale CO2.
What I like about that, especially, is when you look at your initial experience, which kind of brought you into that craft, right? Is you got the experience, you got the ability and time to work hands-on with an individual who really had refined his career, had refined those skills, spent that time as an EA using those tools to set that path to progress on and forward. I'll be honest, like, you walk into a lodge, you're surrounded by examples of men who have careers. Like you walk, sometimes you see next to pilots. We've got certain mayor, juvenile officer, police officer, vets from the war, like
doctors.
Oh my god,
nurses.
It's lawyers, like in every that's exactly right. Well, IT special, all kinds of shit. You get everybody who meets on that level, and it's such an incredible experience. Now, the level is fantastic, especially when you're being in there. But before you got to there, before you entered into that point of being called a brother, what were some of the experience which really kind of left you feeling like you were not on the level in life?
Well, even going to everything now, the reason why I decided to join now is because I was 10 years in college, couldn't devote time, and I know from what I was told again at 15, it's mouth to ear. How Arkansas learns.
Oh, fucking A, yeah. You in the Bible Belt, baby. You ain't gonna get no clear key.
And so I knew I didn't have time beforehand. And going through life, I'm 31. I don't feel like, I have anything together. And, I'm still looking around seeing where the adult is. Well, I am sometimes the adult.
That's scary sometimes.
Right. And, what ended up actually giving me that drive to go ahead and do it is, well, where I end up transferring for work at to the unit where I'm at now is, it's actually one of my coworkers is an Order of the Eastern Star. Her husband is a Mason. So, and he signed my petition as one of my references. Well, she's like, you should go ahead and do it. Well, one night after I ended up downloading TikTok, and it was, right. Well, I ended up starting it just for the D&D videos, but then end up finding Freemasonry Explained.
Everybody does it. So that was your first. That was your first one. Was Freemasonry Explained?
Yeah, actually, my first Masonic TikToker was him because I knew him personally. We went to high school.
Oh shit.
So, and I ended up following him. Was on the live, and people were asking, hey, how do I join? That kept asking. Well, he's like, look up your local lodge or your Grand Lodge, submit this, thing into the Grand Lodge, and they will email you back. Well, I went, screw it. I went ahead and did that. I think it was like Labor Day week, whichever one's in May. And I'm doing that. It was a holiday weekend, so I ended up submitting on a Friday night. Didn't hear anything back on Tuesday because, well, Grand Lodge is voluntary, and again,
right.
they're they sit there and having the weekend off. I don't blame them. And so I got an email back Tuesday with my secretary's number. I text my secretary. He got text me back within probably, I think it was 30 minutes or so, and I ended up meeting up with him that day to get my petition.
That's so fucking cool. So did you go through the formalized, they like you met with an investigation committee from that point?
Yeah. When I end up turning in my petition, of course it goes in front of the lodge, and one of the questions that's on the petition, I had to call him back up because I was on an unfortunate time, was at the wrong place, wrong time, ended up getting arrested. Told him, hey, this is what happened. I have the paperwork showing everything got dismissed. He goes, you're good. answer that correct, truthfully.
Answer honestly, yeah.
Because the question for here is, have you been charged with a felony? Not have you been convicted? And that right there is a big loaded question, because you can be charged all day long. It doesn't mean you're convicted.
Yeah, they're very different, and I know for a lot of people, when they're on the outside of that, when they've never engaged with it, they're like, "What do you mean?" And because it's funny, we get that question a lot on lives, or at least I definitely see it on can felons join? Because I mean, it's an honest question, like,
and so I end up, and I'm gonna tie back to that in here in a little bit, but so I ended up giving my petition in, read it, got voted on, then I got a text or a call from Brother Hannah, which was the head of my investigation committee, and he ended up talking to him. Well, in August is when I met with him. The last week of August, I took off. It was my birthday week, so I went up and had sat down with my investigation committee. It was probably one of the most relaxed interviews I've ever did in my life.
Fucking right.
So was there for like between 30 minutes to an hour. They asked their questions. If I had any questions, I asked mine. Easy, simple. Not really, because I mean, I've had enough people that I personally have met that was a Freemason.
Fair.
And I've firsthand have metaphorically and spiritually touched by Freemasonry without really knowing 100% each person that was. And so it's just one of those that I didn't have any questions, because I didn't need to have clarification of oh well, what if I was this religion, or what about XYZ. I don't have a family member that's in Masonry, how can I join? That never worried me. So it just, most of the questions that most people have and ask is because they are not quite sure if they know a Mason.
Yeah, that's a fair one. I know a lot of people are like, because if so you've got two sides, right? Those who are so left field because they have zero influence, zero connection, that they're literally in a vacuum. You can come up with anything you want. This is your national treasure Mason. I was one of them. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was a little disappointed when I came into. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't get a codex. There's no like, we're not. It was this.
There's no treasure trail I can go find.
Say what? Yeah, no, it's 100%. I was very confused now, but to a fair point, right? In coming into Freemasonry, I found it to be an incredibly esoteric thing. When you look at some of the lore, some of the magic which is expressed in D&D, a lot of the cryptic things which are written by the DM, the mischievous master behind the notebook. As you've come into the craft, do you think there's anything like that waiting?
Well, not necessarily, waiting on the mysteriousness. It's really, interwove to each other. Hold on. Okay.
You're back.
Yeah, but how everything interweaving, that was really impressive, and that, I guess you can say, is a mysterious thing, because you don't realize it until you're told. And again, with going with D&D, as DM, and I've DM'd before. I mean, I enjoy DMing. I enjoy being a player, but be able to set up there and drop crumbs every so often, and then at the end you pull that line tight and it all comes together.
Okay. All right, you got me thinking a little bit. So let's go into some fantasy role playing here. What is let's build a D&D character for the Entered Apprentice, or we're gonna build a Freemason D&D character.
Okay.
You tell me how, in regards to how you want to start this, but let's look at like for you, right? Starting as an EA, if you walked into a, your worshipful master is your DM. What is this kind of starts to look like? Who do you think this character? Tell me about this character.
So I will go with a variant human because, being a variant human, you can get a feat right off the bat. Well, each person's not going to be the same. So, you can get, certain, I think it's a +2 to 1, or you can add 1 to 1 to, another stat. Well, depending on which way you're coming from, you can be strength build. You can go with wisdom or charisma. It all depends on which represents each person. And each feat that you can take, you can do, let's say, magic initiate. Well, guess what? That's involved intelligence. That's a wizard, trait. Or if you go with, someone that is, sitting there, likes to work out, that is, a physical demanding job, like construction workers. Well, that's a strength build. And you're going in, and let's say, you're EA, you're level 3 going into the lodge, knocking on that door. Well, by the time you get your EA, you're learning how to implement the 21-inch gauge and the common gavel, which is level 4. So you do that, you will go up in level. You gain proficient, you're able to increase a stat. So that can be, I have let's say an 18 to strength. Well, I wanted to, have a little bit more constitution. Well, guess what? That works because now you're more hardy. Your 24-inch gauge is more representing in the time that you can split up. And
Ooh.
so, and I think, from 4 to level 7 would be your EA. Because, yes, each level you go up, you can gain a new ability that's per that, class. Then, once you hit level 8, again, I'm not there yet, but going with the D&D reference at level 8, typically you get another stat boost. Well, that's your fellowcraft. You're muted again.
Minor technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. So
it is D&D night, so isn't a D&D night without technical difficulties.
Fucking hey, you're reaching, baby. All right, so let's talk about what is the first obstacle of the entered apprentice in our D&D game, right? That's the realm we're only operating in here.
Well, that's gonna be the biggest obstacle, and with that campaign, and is your memorization, your degree work.
Ooh, yeah. Just learning shit.
Mm-hmm. So each section you do, it's a leg in that campaign.
When you first started D&D, what was the hardest part? You were you able to jump into it and suddenly you're just boom, I got this, I wrote it, or what did you?
Ironically, I didn't get into D&D until last year.
Oh,
so yeah, May 20th of 2020 is actually when I started playing, and it was very daunting making my first character. Not gonna lie, never playing before, didn't have the rules. I mean, I was getting the books sent to me, but I was jumping in. Instead of watching, the first game, no, I jumped in with my own character.
Oh shit, you ballsy!
So, I mean, just like anything else,
you survived.
Actually, my character's still alive, believe it or not. He's almost died 4 times though. Palmar has almost died 4 times, almost fallen to his death because he's rolled at 0 on strength check before. -1 modifier. What? Rolled in at 1. He's a rogue thief. I mean, you don't really need, being very strong when it comes to that, but
but a little bit of grit never helped. Shit.
Well, when he almost fell, it was cold. It was in the mountains going over in a ravine. So, I mean, you can look at it, numb fingertips, cold hands.
Numb fingers,
Exactly. But so going with, me jumping in head first is no different than, doing Freemasonry. Because some people don't, sit there and spend the 3-6 months going to the lodge, getting to know the brothers. Because, for me, I've known quite a few. and one of them ended up signing my petition that was a member of my lodge.
That's pretty cool.
It's representation of it, and I still play D&D till this day. I mean, before hopping on here, I actually just got done with my tonight's recorded session. That's going to be up on YouTube.
Oh hell yeah! What's that channel? Where do these things go? Let's do a plug.
The Iron Realm D&D, and we're also on Facebook, Instagram. I mean, everything you can think of, we're on it. We have a Patreon. We have.
Oh fuck yeah! Well, shit, we'll find. He's gonna send me all of the links, and those will be at the top of the description down below.
So, and what we're doing now for this month, we're doing Extra Life, which is a charity that raises money for hospitals, and the one that we're doing is Arkansas Children's.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And it's one of those things that now. It's really amazing that we're doing something like this, and it's something very small in the grand scheme of things, but very helpful and beneficial when it comes to, making a difference in someone's life.
I mean, I feel like the first, if nothing else, one of that first lessons is the only way you can achieve big things is by small actions over time. Mm-hmm. So just as a side note, are you part of the Freemasons Gaming Facebook group? Because if you're not, okay, I think because I was like, that shit is like that is my Masonic group on Facebook when it comes to like.
They actually asked, one of the questions I asked is who plays D&D, and I actually answered that tonight.
Oh my god! I saw that. I saw that post 8 minutes after it came out, and I was like, I have too much going on right now to commit to even answering this because it really is. It's one of those things. Like I don't want to, but that's my Masonic group, and so when I started to see all these things, I was like, okay, all right. Like that's how we do it.
And so when I jumped in playing D&D, it's no different than jumping in for me than Freemasonry, because I didn't have that 6 months time frame like I was saying. It's just I went in, did my interview with my investigation committee, was voted on the next week, and September 28th is when I got initiated.
Got any eyes on when you're gonna take that second, or are you still working on proficiency? Is that required in Arkansas?
Yes, we are actually required to turn our proficiencies for EA and Fellowcraft. From what I was told from Master Mason, if you're planning on going through the line, you need to turn your Master Mason.
Oh fuck, dude, that proficiency is brutal. I've done my first, I've done my second. I've looked at the third for 2 different states, and I'm just like, oh, it's a lot. It's a lot.
From what I've been told, the obligation on that, you go from having like 2 lines to 4 lines to 12.
It's insane
for the obligation.
But you know what? I really feel like when you look at the intensity of your last proficiency, I feel like if you can successfully deliver that as a Master Mason, you are very, very, very much more prepared for lodge operation. Because that's one of those things, like a lot of times, I think most lodges will open up on the EA for business, so that way.
I know in Arkansas, if we have 7 people, we can open up. 7 Master Masons.
You have to have 7 in order to open up on your EA, which obviously that's in the first, but like I didn't know if that was in. Fair. Oh, I had never thought of that. Like, what happens if you've got one? Like, you don't have as many as you need to open up the lodge on the first.
I just don't say for lodge. I go it beforehand to work on my proficiencies. Hang out until lodge starts, then I bounce.
Oh,
because one, it shows my determination. 2, I told them I'm gonna be here if I'm not working, and that shows that I'm gonna be there if I'm not working.
Oh shit! I tell you what, if I had a key to my lodge, you bet your ass that'd be my extra house. I would be in the library. I'd be like, "What you doing? I'm cooking. What you want? You want some scrambled eggs? I got coffee on." Like,
So, and with me learning how to do D&D, I watch a lot of people. I watch Critical Role. That got my mind rolling on how to play that character. Well, no different than seeking out, your mentor, texting him, saying, "Hey, when you can meet up." I have a brother from another lodge that actually was at my EA, and he's going to be worshipful master of his lodge. Tomorrow he's getting installed, so I'm going to installation tomorrow.
Oh, man, you know how happy I was when I saw you and Psychonaut Gnostic topped with your tinfoil hats. I was like, what the? And I
Yeah,
was just talking to him last night, and he's like, yeah, he was over. And I'm like, I love Arkansas, brother. If you don't think I'm not going to come kidnap you and Psychonaut Gnostic, go out to camp out in the middle of Arkansas. Dude.
Did you see our videos?
I haven't. I'm about to. I know. Okay, so I'm on a. Currently, I'm on a.
I know you're on a 28-day ban of TikTok.
So I love it. I love the app. I love the fraternal connection. But man, sometimes I can't make the good videos. It's hard for me to do these interviews and the editing and.
But and the thing is, you doing this is a big thing. Yes, doing TikTok is great, but you're doing more than you realize doing these type of videos. Interviewing brothers, interviewing prospective people that are coming in, as initiates soon, entering EAs as myself, Master Masons, all that does a really big thing because it shows we're people. It shows we're everyday people.
Well, one, God bless you for those kind words, but it's people like you who are the inspiration for this. When I started, I would have killed. I mean, that's a terrible word to choose, but I would have really worked hard. I would have rolled extra to try to find, another EA or somebody who I could have watched to experience, because I came into it and there was a big character confliction. And I got onto TikTok and I'm like, wow, these guys are my friends and they're more like me than I could ever imagine. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, every time I get on and I get to hear your stories, like what amazes me about yours in particular is how young you were. Like that, and that you were quite literally within the hands of an operative Mason on a level, right? Now I look at operative Mason as not just stone, but like if you're an actual builder of any kind. You talk about that woodworking and things like that, and like construction. I'm like, you were learning and really kind of, that whole measure twice, cut once kind of lesson. Mm-hmm. You were being prepared. Not, I don't in any space think that this was the intention, just to prepare you for life, but like, there's a Frank or his fit goals. Mm-hmm. He's going to be an EA for a year, and the benefit that gets to do for him to spend that time going through these degrees. I look at you in the same space, like the ability that you have to be, to go through this and to be able to have all of these people. What's been your favorite part about like the TikTok Masonic Lodge #1?
Honestly, really, my favorite part is meeting, different brothers. Anywhere from Harp to, and you actually added me before I added you on TikTok. So, and I went, okay, cool, yeah. And I ended up adding you back, and, Widow Miho, let's go with the, Psychonostic. I went up, got a hold of him, hey, I'm heading up to Branson, this weekend. Can I swing by your place? Because you're not that far from my main route to, swing by where you live at. He goes, yeah, no problem. Just let me know, and here's my address, and just come on by. I just need to check with the wifey, see we're good. We're typically free, so I don't see an issue. So I end up texting him, say, hey, on Friday, hey, we still good for Sunday? He goes, yeah. So I went ahead and swung by, and that brotherhood, it's different than most any other brotherhood, that you can say you've been a part of.
It's like that good boy. Like, mm-hmm. I don't know. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of times I started in my lodge, I felt a lot of hurt because it was a real rural lodge full of older guys who they didn't want to get out. It was very difficult to get engaged, but I got on TikTok, I got on the internet, and I started connecting with legitimate brethren, making those connections, not just like, oh, let me join a Facebook group, but no, like making the connections, commenting, talking. Holy hell. I feel like it's like somebody turned on the light for me within mm-hmm. my journey on Freemasonry. It's like, this shit's lit the fuck up. Like, I don't even know what I want to do. I'm at the career fair of brothers. There's so much opportunity out here. So looking at that opportunity, that potential, what do you think the fraternity looks like over the next 5, 10, and 15 years?
Well, it's going to be really hard to, even, do a 5-year stretch, because you're going to have brothers that come and go. You're going to have brothers that, decommit or, decommit but come back. If we're able to be, sit there and talk the truth, speak our experiences on how everything is, I think it's going to be prosperous. I think we're going to have a growth. People actually come to us with an open mind, not a closed mind, but closed mind saying, well, YouTube says this, the 5-hour video says this. I'm like, you don't go to a butcher and ask them how to fish.
Hey, I like that. Put that shit on a t-shirt.
You don't go to a doctor and ask them, how to build a house. You go to a doctor to ask a medical question. Why not, go to YouTube? If we're going to go to YouTube, use YouTube as a, video to show how to replace something.
Learn. Don't go there for like somebody's opinion.
I can understand that. Okay, oh well, this is what this says. Well, if you're open-minded and you go and talk to someone, be open-minded to what they're telling you on how it is. When people tell you, hey, go to a lodge, go hang out with brothers there, find out what's going to be the best fit for you, and don't sit there and expect something overnight just magically happen. That may not happen, because some of the lodges do have older people. I'm the youngest in my lodge, not only by being EA, but actually by age.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic. I'll be honest, that's one of those things where it's like I always took a lot of joy because in my life, and I just personally didn't have a lot of masculine influence. A lot of like my grandmother was both my grandfather, like she really was just, she embodied the masculine energy. I mean, she's a crazy ass woman, so she did a good job at it. But so coming into the craft, this was my only opportunity to really listen and kind of have this experience. But it was not one where I was like, oh, I can just openly move up to it. Like there was a lot there. There was a lot which moved into it that drove me to have to be humble. You have to learn. You come in and you're on the level. Everybody meets on the level, but you realize that it's like, no, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. This, like the memorization alone, right? You get those charges, you get those things, and you're like, I didn't see anybody with a script. How the fuck do you do that?
Well, and like with my EA degree, a couple of them had to decipher. I after being on TikTok, you noticed the little book, and certain parts, was used during certain parts of it, and okay, I can understand. And the one thing people don't realize is you can make mistakes. Even in degree work, mistakes happen.
Oh God, you can have it memorized perfectly the minute you walk into lodge. I'll sit here in my goddamn den in the smoke lounge and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. I walk into lodge and I'm struck deaf and dumb.
Well, like for instance, one of my favorite, because I've been to 3 other EA degrees other than my own.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and it's because we can travel around and go watch different EA degrees. Well, every EA degree, I've had a brother there that has known me, either been at my EA. No, every single one of people's been at my EA. Either one, because the person that was the worshipful master that presided over my EA was a senior warden at the first one I went to. Then he was also, didn't take part in the second one, I believe, but he was still there, so he could vouch for me. Not only the people that met me at the first one knew me, and it just stemmed from there. And that's the thing that is really remarkable is you may know one person there, from past experience, but you're welcomed as in, they've seen you born.
Yeah. Well, and damn, ooh, what a damn good way to say that. And that's a good metaphor, a good analogy, a good bit of poetic prose there to look at how you are met within the craft, right? Because a lot of religions and varying spiritual systems and mention rebirth and born again, but I'll be honest, the reception you get and that you feel when you have come through that cover, come through that place, ooh, gives me chills just thinking
Mhm.
about it. It really does. And then you become a traveling man after you become that master. I mean, really, which fucking blows me away because you're not even a master, but you're still traveling. Like, which is actually cool because the master's just entitled to the master's wages. You know, not to say that you can't still travel
Oh,
as
yeah.
an EA. So but I look at it and I'm like, it's so fucking cool to see that you've been able to take this radical, really, not, it's not even radical, it's radical today. This really adventurous, this really progressive forward approach. Like, no, I'm going to get in on my degrees. I'm going to prove that I'm engaged. Because I listen and you really seem energetic. You know, when you talk, when you and Brother Fluff, right? I feel like you're his stone cousin, and that like you just chill, boo. Like you sipping that man. Like, what's up? And we good, wizards right here. But you know, you have such energy, you know, and I say it's youthful, and it really is. It's like it's I could just sit and drink it. I want to be in lodge with you because you can play off that. That's where it starts to feed into other brethren. You get older guys who are like, I haven't seen this since Jacob A over on 289 when he gave this blank and they're like, and they're starting to see a lot of this older generation. They're beginning to see some of these really young, excited Masons like yourself, and they're like, shit.
Well, like my lodge. If you look up, you know, Masonic Lodge in my city, my lodge doesn't pop up, which tonight I'm gonna have to get that on Google. I actually talked to my secretary, which is a past grandmaster as well, and he's like, go ahead and do it. I mean, I'm like, okay. I mean, with me having, you know, Robert's Rule of Order, you know, education with that, and knowing how a lot of things have to be voted upon per lodge, just because my Greek fraternity, I want to bring that up that you know, to him to, you know, if he had to propose that to lodge.
Yeah.
You know, so he's like, go ahead and do it. If you can figure out, that's great. And I'm like, and the reason why I say it, you know, brought that up is because we tell people, Google your local lodge. Well, if they're not on Google Maps, how can they Google and find their local lodge?
That's fatal, right? Because what you're gonna have happen is you're gonna have people who go to the Grand, or not the Grand Lodge, they go to Google and the lodge they find is not the closest to them, but it's the first one that showed up. So you literally are having, you know, potential candidates filter away.
Well, and not only that, but when you Google, you know, Masonic Lodge in my city, in my city, you have, you know, literally the next town over that's literally, you know, merged like that on city lines. There's two of them. You see, you know, 6 or 7 of them in Little Rock. You know, you see the Albert Pike Museum. You see all that stuff pop up, but not the one lodge. And I know my city's not the only one. I know, you know, because I am a young guy, and I know other lodges have that same, you know, I'm not gonna say an issue because it's not. It's
a deficiency.
more so foresight.
It's a deficiency. Now, it's not something that's intentional, right? But it's a byproduct of time. You can take any building, if it's not kept up to date, it wears down. And technology is what creates our buildings. It's what creates our lodges. And technology today has evolved to presence on the internet. It's connectivity, it's communication. And I think in a lot of spaces, lodges, it's not that they wouldn't, it's that the only people who have kept this lodge going are the same people who've kept it going for the last 15 years. And that can sometimes put a bit of pressure when you're like, listen, I've been mailing these forms in for this amount of time. The thought of having to look to computerly integrate this, or likewise, you know, like it can be really daunting. And that's why I feel like it's the responsibility. It is the duty. It's going to start being in the obligation eventually. Like I swear to receive and answer all due emails and text messages.
Well, not only that, but I have to agree with what Brother Fluff has said. You know, Masonry wasn't quick enough to get on the internet, as in, you know, being the headstrong, the, you know, head of the spear, you know, the arrowhead or the spear, to cut the, you know, conspiracy theories, you know, in half and just dismiss them, you know, on, you know, and educate. We, you know, as a whole, you know, I have agreed with what he was saying with that, because, you know, it's a slow, you know, turn of getting people on the internet. And yes, there are, you know, downsides of it. You know, there are lodges that, you know, people, you know, catch on fire and stuff like that, that, you know, really is disheartening as a person, not even as a Mason.
Yeah,
you know, or an
irrespective.
EA, or in any type, of the 3 degrees. It doesn't matter if you're a entered apprentice mason, fellow craft, or master mason. And it's just, as a human, someone willing to go out their way to destroy property just because, oh well, they do this and XYZ, but yet you're saying you're Christian or whatever your religion is, and you're going to destroy property because of what you heard.
Yeah, that's where I definitely feel like as Freemasons, we have to kind of step away and we have to undo what I'm not going to say is the mistake of our forefathers, but I think was a necessary sidestep to misinformation and to conspiracy at a time and age when we couldn't radically communicate. And that's the thing, right? We lived in a day and age where you couldn't send a letter to one person and have that letter shared with the same 1,000, 10,000 other people without it physically being taken to them. So now, in an age where misinformation is just as rampant, but so is information, and I think that's the advantage that we have over our forefathers, is that information is just as readily and just as available as misinformation. We just have to be able to bring it up like that.
Well, also, I will say, every 10 links there is for conspiracies for Freemason, there is one actual link of, truth.
Right.
It's, like you said, it's easy, it's out there, it's easy to get to, but what is true? What is the truth when you type in, Freemasons on the internet? Like Brother Fluff has said, the first 10 links are conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
But if you type in, your city and Freemasons or Freemasonry, or, it will pop up what, has been going on, or pops up, actual factual, websites.
But in many spaces, right, that also serves, that's been a long standing, like even to the most ancient of origins, protector of the craft. From the White Lodge, which created the Blue Lodge, to all of what protected it was the fact that if you couldn't get beyond that veil of, just be honest, stupidity, like logical search and activate, like, because anyone, if you are applying logical information, if you're if you're really looking, you'll see and you'll be able to find. But if you're not, then it hides itself from you. It's deliberately veiled in allegory, even in certain spaces where it calls misinformation. You see the writings of Albert Pike, you see Manly P. Hall. Like, these are things which they deliberately wrote with evocative, symbolic terms, so that if you didn't know what they were talking about and you read it, you would have an emotional response. Like, if you've read Morals and Dogma, if you've read any of Manly, especially even the Lost Keys of Freemason, which he wrote before being a Freemason, you can still actively feel that deep proverbial symbolism.
Exactly. And it's harder and harder to get certain things across when people don't open their minds. And that's what I'm happy with, Brother Phillips live last night. There was a couple people that, asking questions, and I answer questions in chat. Either it's Brother Fluffs, Harps, or whoever, Brothers Live I'm in. I actually answer, questions in the chat, and I had 2 people go, "Oh, well, I didn't realize that. Cool. I'm going to, look out,
I'm
for
gonna
my
go
lodge."
check it out. Yeah.
Or, one of them is moving, to a different state. I'm going to wait until I move to that state, and he was like, well, what if, I have a felony? I'm like, that's depending on the jurisdiction. Go talk to the lodge, because, if it's certain things, let's say, you're 18 stupid and it's a drug charge. And I'm talking about, marijuana.
I'm like, yeah, let's be real. Like, if I got stopped in Kansas with a quarter of weed, that's gonna drop me with the felony. Yet, like 5 miles across the state line, I'm legally protected.
Yeah.
So,
it's just one of those things that, it all depends. Granted, my jurisdiction, from what I've been told, is, if you felony, you can't, join. Well, again, it's all jurisdictional, because, if you're 18, you've done something stupid, but yet you've been good moral character. You've done well. You've been out of trouble. The worst thing you've gotten since 18 was a seatbelt ticket or speeding ticket. That's depending on the lodge itself.
Right, and I think I don't trust the mute button. And I think that's the big part, right? Is regardless of conspiracy, regardless of place, if anybody who's watching or comes into the space, if you've got any radical or crazy ideas, right, don't let them sit there. Go test them. Take them to the lodge. Take them to a brother. And if you can't find one, you haven't looked hard enough. Mm-hmm. Brother, as we come to the end of this wonderful chat and interview, what would you like to leave all of those seeking or searching souls who are debating or considering the fraternity with?
I will say this, go with it with an open mind. Don't go with a closed mind. Don't go, well, according to YouTube. No, that right there is going to sit there and, depending on the brother, might irritate them, might, push them away. Go with an open mind. Seek and you shall receive is one of the biggest things that, we're, been quoted throughout, everyone's life that's around my age, if not younger or older. Go with an open mind, go knock on that door. If you can't find the local lodge, contact your Grand Lodge of your state. It's going to be the biggest thing. And the Grand Lodge of your state, will sit there and get you with a legal and recognized lodge. You don't have to worry about anything clandestine or anything like that with it. And guys, enjoy it. It's a wild ride. Wild as in fun. You meet people you never think you would meet, and you gain friendships that last a lifetime.
Brother Chrysler, I couldn't agree more. And for those of you who are wanting to learn more, who want to seek more, one, I would highly encourage you to go follow this beautiful bastard. But likewise, check out the links down below if you like D&D, if you want to learn more, if you want to find out more, just in general, experience what is the variance that is within the craft, or just, play some fun-ass games. Mm-hmm. Come join us. Brother, thank you for taking the time and for joining me. May the light ever shine on your path.
You too, brother.
Be well. Bye-bye.